What I want to do tonight, before we talk about the future, and this is something I think it's so important for us to do more often than we do, is to look back, right? And for some of us, this is new information, but some of you have been around. But in 2006, right, which is the year that Bridgeway started, we get to celebrate that moment here tonight. And it would be remiss for us to not look back before we look forward. And I wanted just to remind us that the reason why the Bridgeway was founded was because Art and Holly received a vision from God to create a new type of church in Denton County, which is to be a church without walls. And this is not going to be your average church, one of the other dozens of churches that you could go to, but there was going to be something unique about this church, and really that stems from our vision. And we've talked about this all the time, and we can't overstate our vision enough, because really the implications are profound. But we are a church without walls, which means we think that anyone should come, and today we've even talked about that, about barriers that we have in church. We think we should be a church without barriers. Right, so anyone can come into an environment either on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night or what have you and hear about Jesus. And so we also know that for us, though, one of the things that makes Bridgeway is that we fundamentally believe that church happens outside of these walls. So that true church happens around your living rooms, around tables, at your workplaces, around schools, right? So that's the whole idea of being a church without walls. It's a push and pull. It is an environment where everyone can come, but then everyone goes out and to share their faith. And I say that again because we have to realize what a gift that is, and how grateful we need to continue to be for that legacy that we've been given, that God has placed on first of all on the hearts of Art and Holly, but that we've all been a part of championing that vision. And then again, I just start thinking about this, and I think about, at least at Bridgeway for the last 13 years, there's been a foundation, there's been a legacy that has started. It's a spiritual legacy that we are all a part of. We all carry that, and I certainly feel that to a greater degree, possibly because especially after coming on as the new lead minister, I feel this weight to continue this work to help us bring new life into our vision. But so there's where the fun part gets. So we start to look back, and now we start to look around at where we are today, and that's 2019, by the way, if you're kind of catching that on here. So 2019, so we're here, and I think that's the first thing we need to acknowledge is that we are all here, and we're here together. We're unified, and we get to celebrate where we've been, and we also get to look ahead to where we're going, but we're going to go there together. And we're healthy, and maybe the more precise theological term would be that we're blessed. Did you know that? We are incredibly blessed. And you guys are hey, you guys are core people. If you want to throw some amens or like, hey, just go for it, Kyle, like you can do that. It'll help me. So we're healthy, and we have to realize in the last 18 months, if we just look at that time period, we've seen in a time of transition, mind you, and remember, leadership transitions always are church decliners. They're never good, right? And so we have seen a leadership transition that has been the healthiest that I've ever seen. We've seen almost 18% growth in terms of our total attendance. We're seeing people give and be generous, and we're seeing our budget exceeded. We've seen, I think to date, and it's probably a little bit beyond this now, but we've baptized over 100 people through the ministries of Bridgeway. We've launched a new missionary family. We've brought on two new staff members for our next gen team. I mean, we could just continue to go on and on, correct? We have been blessed richly by God, and that is amazing, and we need to thank God for that. We need to realize what a gift that is. But with blessing, right, we are blessed to be a blessing. God has entrusted us with much, so I really feel almost a greater weight, right? Because God's blessed us. He's given us something, and he's saying, hey, you got to go out, and you're going to have to do something with what I've given you. And that's why I say we're hungry. We need to always be asking ourselves, okay, God, you've given us this. What are we supposed to do? You've blessed us, and now we have to ask for what purpose. And so for us, we need to realize that we need to stay hungry. It's the parable of the talents. When we're blessed, when we're given something, it's like, ooh, that's nice. It's blessing. It's like a blessing blanket or something. We want to bury that treasure, and God says, no, I've given it to you to go make a kingdom impact, all right? And so that's why we get to be excited when we're looking around, and I'm telling you, so few churches get to be excited when they look around. And let's just look at 2024. So 5 years from today, I've been thinking about what I see and what our leaders see happening in and through Bridgeway. And I see three things. I see, first of all, I see a thriving church. And some of the things that I do late at night is I just stay up and I just dream about Bridgeway. It's kind of weird, but I just do that. And sometimes you appear in my dreams about Bridgeway, and it's bizarre. And I won't tell you which of you appear in my dreams, because that would be even weirder. But I see our church, and I start to think about what does our church look like in 5 years. You know, when I was first coming to Bridgeway and we were in these conversations, I remember someone sent me this document, and it was something that our elders had developed about the church. It was like a one-pager. And it said something pretty bold that I really latched onto, that inspired me, and maybe it'll inspire you. First of all, I saw our vision and our mission, and I loved that. That was the thing that really attracted me. But our elders said something very, very provocative and very, very profound. They said, on this piece of paper, and so it's written down so I can show you the evidence. They said, in the hands of the right leader, Bridgeway can be a church of 1,500 people. I thought, well, that's kind of bold. It's kind of bold, and I started to think about it. Is that even possible? Is that even possible to be a church of 1,500? And as I started to think about that, I started to get excited about it, but not because 1,500 is a cool, big number. I started to think about what would happen, what would have to happen for us to get there. And I started thinking about just stories and individuals. And I started to think about Bridgeway as a church of 1,500. I was thinking about this. In 2024, if we could get there, that would mean we would baptize 350 people a year in 2024. I think about the fact that if we can work in this direction, and if we can accomplish that goal, we could start to give close to $500,000 away per year for missions alone. I start thinking about the ministry that could happen. I start to think about the people that could come to faith. And because here's what it is. When we start talking about numbers and things, some people are like, ew, we don't want to talk about church growth. And you know how I feel about that. I think the church is supposed to grow. Peter grew it by 3,000 in one day. So he's kind of laid down the gambit for us there. But I started to think about it, because when you start to think about goals, and those are all actually outcomes of a healthy, thriving church. So when you see a healthy, thriving church, you see people come to know Jesus. You see a whole community transformed, which is the next thing I see. And I would also say, here's the one thing I would change about what our elders said. It said in the hands of the right leader. And I would just add an S to the end of that word, and I would agree. Because this has never been about one person. This has never been about a personality. This is about a group of people coming together around a common vision. And I truly believe if leaders, this room, and probably a few others, if our leaders come together, I truly believe that we can accomplish that. And I get so excited to think about the impact and the life change that represents. So that's what I see for our church. But when we think about the community, we have to realize that we're supposed to transform our community. And again, we've talked about this, but 70% of people in Denton County, in the heart of the Bible, buckle of the Bible belt, do not know Jesus. Which means that I believe that in 2024, we should look at Bridgeway as a place that is actually transforming our community. I think we should make it as hard as possible for someone to go to hell in Denton County than we possibly can make it. And we have to realize those are the stakes we're talking about here. This is eternities. These are people's eternal life connected to or disconnected to God. And so what I see is that we need to be transforming our community, and Bridgeway needs to be an active partner with other many churches, but we need to be a part of transforming this community, and then we also need to be working towards a changed world. And the cool thing is here, we're already starting to see what happens when people that are excited about the gospel and excited about making disciples, when you see like a Peter and Rhea. Peter and Rhea are, in one sense, they're just these two people out in the middle of Greece, right? But you just look at some of the things that are happening, it's like these drops are hitting a pond. And these little drops, they start to ripple out. And I see what happening through the lives of Peter and Rhea and people like Michael and Liz Stathopoulos, that we're actually being a part of changing the world. We're going to the ends of the earth to change the world with the good news of Jesus, which desperately needs it. And so when I start thinking about 2024, I get really excited about what I think God can do in and through this church if its leaders will come together and be unified and be focused and be non-compromising on that vision. So, the question: if we agree on this vision, if we're excited about this vision, then the question is, what do we have to do today to impact the world tomorrow? So literally, what do we need to start doing right now that will allow us to get where we see ourselves going for the next 5 years and beyond? But so what we're going to do tonight is, we're just, for the next few minutes, I want to just share with you 2 initiatives that we are feeling called to accomplish in this next year. And this is something that we've done for the last better part of a year with our staff and our elders. We've had lots of conversations with ministry stakeholders, with obviously our leadership team. Over the summer, some of you have been invited to come to other meetings where we've had conversations around finances and just trying to ask lots of questions and to really ascertain where God is leading us. And we feel at every step God has been saying, yep, take another step. And take another step. And so here we are tonight. We are a large leadership core of Bridgeway, and we're excited about these. So I want to announce 2 initiatives that we feel led to accomplish or to take on in the next 24 months. And the first is this. It's that we want to see a marked increase in our missions funding. And I've said it once, and I'll say it 100 more times, that our missions team and the Bridge Beyond team, led by Roxanne and formed by Dave Tillman, it's probably the flagship thing that we do at Bridgeway. The level of professionalism and the care of detail and just the passion that they have for missions is frankly unparalleled, and I will belabor that point as long as I can. It is absolutely incredible. And what we're seeing here is that we're seeing God is already up to something incredible with missions, both locally and regionally with our work in downtown Dallas, but also abroad with some of the other exciting things happening. And we always have this idea that, hey, why don't we just figure out what God is doing already and get on God's team and start doing what God is already doing, right? And so we've started to do that, and we're seeing incredible things in missions, but we need to also increase our ability to respond to what God is doing. And so we need to see more resources available for some specific initiatives that we want to accomplish, but also we want to see our ability to respond and to be able to say yes to things that God is leading us to do. So that's initiative 1. The next thing we want to do is we want to construct a children's facility. The time has come for us to enact the final phase of our site plan here, which has always been to build a permanent children's facility. If you are aware of our current facilities, you know that they leak, and there's a very good chance that it might be blown away by the next stiff breeze, okay? So, I say that a little bit in tongue-in-cheek. I'm not here to make the case here. When you see it, you know that this is just something that we need to do. I'll talk a little bit more about why, but it is time for us to enact this final plan, this final phase of our site vision to construct a children's facility, and this is exactly what it will look like. All right, so what is the need? So the need is this, and I've put this here so you can kind of get an idea, because we're talking about things in like a 2-year horizon here. So we're not thinking just an annual budget, we're thinking of a 2-year span here. So general operations, that's salaries, staffing, keeping the lights on, et cetera, et cetera. That's $1.125 million a year, which gives us a total 2-year need of $2.25. So again, this is what we're basically doing now, and Julie, you can correct me, we're like 107% of plan here on this. So again, we're very confident that this is a very manageable number. This is kind of representative of what we do now. Missions, again, you can see here, we want to see 175 per year for a total of 350. And then right now, we're projecting the building cost to come in somewhere in the 1.8 million. It could be a little less. That's still getting more clarity each and every day. And so what this looks like is over 2 years, it would be a total need of $4.4 million, which again, is definitely a little eye-popping, but just to put this into perspective and context here, when we were originally retrofitting and buying this space, the need proportionate to where we were then was actually greater. Does that make sense? So we did more proportionally with less resources. Now, this is still going to be a challenge. It's going to be something we're all going to have to, it represents a lot of sacrifice, etc. But we do feel that with God's help and with our sacrifice, we can actually come into this, get this need. And we'll talk a little bit, I know, because there's a few questions that I know you're asking already. We'll get to at least one of them here in a few minutes, but let me come back to this. And so what you see here, again, year one, year two, the total need is $4.4 million. And so what we're proposing here is we need to talk about, again, how do we get there? And what you see here is this is sort of just a representative sketch of the traditional way of raising funds and of operating. And you see here you've got different buckets. You've got operations for year one and year two, missions and a building, and it's kind of a thing. And you give to one of these buckets or two of these buckets or whatever. And so that's been kind of the predominant way that we have done these things in the past in church world, just as a general statement. I'm not saying this is bad, and actually there are some things that this does. It can be effective. But what we have thought to do, and this is something that a lot of other churches have begun to do, is to rethink our funding strategy. So what I see here, and just let's compare this to this. So what we have talked about, and what we're pursuing, and what we're very excited about, is an approach to funding called OneFund. And some of you have heard this before, but here's the big idea behind OneFund. Are you ready for it? There's one. Okay, there's one fund. And that's kind of whatever, but if you think about it, we have one vision. We don't have 5 visions. We have one vision, which is to be a church without walls. We have one mission, which is to connect people to God and to others, and to connect others to God. And so what we're looking at here is one commitment to fund the vision and the mission over the next 24 months. And so we see here that this is a different way of thinking about OneFund. And I know, again, there's more questions coming, and I'm going to try to answer a few of them at least. But what we're trying to do is try to cultivate a culture of generosity that doesn't give to the bottom line operating expense budget, but rather it gives to the top line vision. And so we have one vision, and obviously there are multiple parts of that, right? We have missions, and we have operating things, and we have a building, and so we need to get all those things done. But we're rethinking about it. So instead of 5 or 6 separate asks over the course of a year or two, we're wanting one commitment that will fund the vision for the next 24 months. And here's the other cool part. As people come in and people join Bridgeway and get excited about what we're doing, they're automatically brought into this culture. They're brought into vision-centered giving that helps them to understand that when I give $1, it's not just me, keeping on a light. It's actually me funding the vision and the mission of the church. Okay, so I've been going for a few minutes here, and I realize that, and I want to just, as we're processing, I just want to just land this just with sharing a little bit of just my personal journey. When I say our or my, this is me and Lizzie here. Because as we've been working through this process, and I realize some of you are just hearing about this, some of you have known about this for a while, but Lizzie and I have been thinking about this project for us and this next phase for a while, And so we've started to kind of ask ourselves, okay, what does this mean? And we've asked ourselves, okay, where do we see the church going? And one of the things we've realized going through this process, first of all, is we've just realized how excited we are about being here. We have, obviously we moved our family here 2 years ago, and frankly, you never know how it's going to go. Let's just be honest. Texas and Oregon have nothing in common. We somehow do this. The first house we ever bought, Lizzie was 6 months pregnant. The second house we bought, Lizzie was 8 months pregnant. The third house we buy, I don't even know how we're going to do that. We're going to so we make this huge move, and again, I just want to say how grateful we are for again, all of you for adopting us as your spiritual family, and we really have felt loved by you guys, and And as we've continued to just go through this process of learning a new church and a new place, we're just excited. And we're more excited now than we were 2 years ago. And that's really exciting, because it doesn't always work that way, right? But we're so excited about what's happening in the church. We're so excited about the relationships that are taking root, and just the friendships and the community that we have here. And so we are really excited. And I just want to tell you that we just like being here, and we like being with you, and we appreciate you for just adopting us and just being willing to go on a journey with us. But I started to think about these things and about projects and missions and all these things. But what I started to feel is that I started to see, and I suppose Lizzie and I are kind of young enough where we're thinking about what our future and legacy will look like. It's kind of the stage we're in. And we started to think about this next journey and what we're excited about, and what we're scared about. But we started to think about it, and we started to imagine looking back 15 years from now, 20 years from now, this time. Our boys, Jack and Wes, Jack's 6, Wes is 2 almost, and many of you know that they are not Christians. If you're in children's ministry, you know that Jack is definitely not saved. He has not been regenerated by the Holy Spirit. We just talked about our boys, and at some point, I can't remember if it was Lizzie or me, someone said, won't it be cool that in this building that we want to build, that Jack one day, most likely, will commit his life to Jesus in one of those rooms. I'm like, what do you say to that? And for me, here's the deal, and I've told some of this. I did not get into ministry to raise money and to build buildings. It's just not, I'm not excited about that. It's like, hey, I'd like to meet indoors, right? So I think we should do this. But what I get excited about is when I think about the fact that, my boys will probably come to faith, and they'll get baptized right out there. And I think about families that are totally broken, and their kids are going to come to know Jesus, and then parents are going to see a life change in their kids, and they're going to come and they're going to give their lives to Jesus, and we're going to see an entire family get baptized together. You think about Peter and Rhea, and they, even just today on Facebook we posted, and there's Peter and Rhea, and they're baptizing these 2 or 3 Muslim refugees, and they can't even show their names, right? Because their situation is so tenuous. But 20 people have already been baptized, and that's cool in and of itself. But the cool part, the thing that gets even more exciting is when you think about what those 20 people might go and do for the kingdom. And that's something we won't ever see this side of heaven, but we get to be a part of that. And some guy is going to come up to you one day in heaven, and it's like, you know what? I got baptized by Peter over there. And then you're going to have that feeling of, well, what I did, I had some small part of helping Peter and Rhea or Jake and Stacy or Michael and Liz or David and Sam, all these people. I had some small part in that story. And we don't know if that person might be the person who ushers in a gospel movement in the Muslim world and sees millions of Muslims come to Jesus. And we'll never see it this side of the heaven. And isn't that so cool? And so for me, as we started to think about that, we just get excited. But here's what I can absolutely and very with a lot of conviction and absolute clear conscience. I want to invite you to go on this journey. If what's happened already in our heart and in our marriage and in our family is any indication of what's going to come, I would frankly feel wrong with not inviting everyone else to come along this journey with us.